Hi, Crystal. Thank you so much for joining us on the Everyday Mystic.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to talk about a few different things from your history and your story. We'll get to that, of course. Before we hit record, though, I want to bring voice to the fact that both of us were feeling this low energy today, feeling this state of not most aliveness. And I wanted to
Yeah.
bring it into the conversation because sometimes when people tune in to hear us as podcasters or come to our classes, our courses, or whatever we're doing as facilitators, we're usually bringing our best and our most highest energy forward. But sometimes we feel like shit. And sometimes we're showing up anyway and channeling what we can and in our best way possible. And I want to share the humanness of that because just because we are facilitators, voices in this space, it doesn't mean that we're not human and that we're
Mm.
not going through the exact same stresses, constraints, pains, discomfort that anyone who we may be helping is also going through. So I just wanted to name that because I know no matter what, whatever we bring forth is going to be whatever anyone's tuning in is meant for. And maybe that's just to hear something like that, to hear like, you're not alone in your stress. You're not alone in your discomfort. You're not alone in your tiredness of where you feel like you're just dragging your body around. Sometimes we all need just to be heard and seen in that space. And that's all we need.
Mm. I love this conversation because I don't think it's talked about enough. A lot of times when you're in a leadership position and in the wellness space, it's expected that you're always projecting being 100% all of the time. But I think a part of healing is not pushing against those moments when you're not 100% and learning to listen to your body and being the human. I call her my human, Crystal. She's in a body. She has this amazing vessel that's incredibly intelligent and it's finding its way, but it's also in more or less in space and time in this dimension of being. So sometimes it needs a little space and time to find its way. And that's not a failure. That's just being inner human. And yeah, certainly you can learn things to move through it with more grace and ease, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, especially when you've, for me in particular, just got back from Egypt. I'm jet lagged. I picked up a bug, but it's all part of my integration and a reminder, when you go out so far, sometimes you got to bring it back into your experience. And so it's okay. It's okay to not feel well. I think the Virgo in me also, the perfectionism can be a big shadow, and being on the lower side of the gradient of vitality is only an indicator. There's nothing wrong with being there. And the beautiful thing is you can kind of learn how to move up and down that gradient with ease.
And it's so much about learning yourself, learning that human version of your immense soul body, learning what we want to call them, limitations or just the
Yeah.
parameters in which we operate both best. And when we're not operating at our best, to recognize it, know the things that we can do, you use that beautiful word grace to give
Mm.
ourselves, because as humans, as Virgos, or just perfectionists in general, even if you're
Yeah.
not a Virgo, I think a lot of us are forced into perfectionism just
Yeah.
through the programming that goes on. We're just rewarded and given value with how well we can succeed and exceed our last level. And
Mm-hmm.
even within the spiritual mystical space, there's a leveling up kind of hierarchical situation that goes on too for people. It's like guru level 7 has been reached. They're operating from that same place of
Yeah.
achievement and pushing
Mm-hmm.
themselves and perfectionism, of where they're not necessarily giving themselves the grace to either just be human or to take everything as it comes and to flow with that.
Yeah. Usually when your body's speaking to you or the vitality barometer is a little lower. I used to, especially when I was working in biotech startups, it was like push through Silicon Valley. Just make it happen. And if you push through, and you can to a degree, but there's a cost to it, because something's trying to communicate, something's trying to move through you. And then it can hit you in the face. Like I had a severe illness in 2020, and then that really humbles you. That I think a lot of being in the human, on the human side of things, is humility. We signed up for this. We signed up for being in a human body on this planet, on this time. And part of what we signed up for is to learn how to be in the discomfort sometimes of the physical, and to learn how to navigate it, and to become a little bit more fluid, like you're saying, like to flow with it. I think first is listening and getting quiet, which is a big part of what I'm all about, which is meditation gives you that space to really listen and not just kind of burst through and ignore and suppress. And then usually there's something that wants to be communicated. And if you can merge with what wants to be communicated, it can be as simple as slowing down. You've got your foot on the gas. You're doing too much. You're going too fast that you might miss something important. And so there's a slow down element, but I think there's also a information element. And if all else fails, take a beat, step back. Because like I said, a lot of times if you don't, life makes that a little bit more aggressive, let's say.
We'll get that gift no matter what. It just might be
No matter what.
in a much harder pill to swallow.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was that like for you then when you hit that wall in 2020? Did it open up a new level of your own expansion and journey?
Big time, big time. Certainly had a brush with death. So getting familiar with death energy is really interesting. I say that it's like an old friend shows up at your door that you didn't expect. There's a familiarity to it, which is really interesting and odd. And it was very much a spiritual portal for me. I started having past life flashbacks right before it came on. I knew something was coming in before it came in, which was also very interesting. And there's many things that happen, but I would say, the biggest one was facing the fear of death, which I didn't think I had a fear of death because I've worked in the spiritual work for so long. But when you're really facing it, that is a whole nother level to reckon with. I really had to lean into my faith. That was my mantra through the whole thing when I was in hospital and when I got out of hospital. And it took me about a year to heal to like a normal point. But faith over fear was my mantra, trying to release the fear. And I did experience some very profound moments of surrender when I said, you know what, my analytical mind can't do this. My, biochemical background's not going to solve this case. And I need to let it go because this is too hard. It's just too much. And to truly surrender. So I think that's another component, the surrendering, that's the flow. When you enter that surrender, you enter that flow. And then interestingly, all these amazing things started to open up, spiritual experiences. I had beings that came into the room that helped with my healing. And that was really the turning point at that point, after I finally let go of the struggle and of the trying to manage it myself and gave it over to the higher mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely it does. When I was 16, I had a similar experience. I don't know exactly what landed you in the hospital, but for me, it was an accident and a traumatic brain injury, skull fracture, and all sorts of neck and spinal injury. And I had a similar moment or series of moments of where I had to surrender. That was one of those hard pills to swallow situations where I was really being called to initiate when I didn't feel like I was ready, but I had to be ready because I was in such a dark place. And so getting that gift, which then opened up the experience of hearing and meeting my guides and my higher self and having them come in and assist the healing and tell me what to do. They spoke for me at the hospital and it was so amazing. I didn't know what was going on. At 16 years old, this was the very beginning of things. And so although I had read different books and had different experiences, I was still so naive and I had no idea, but the trust was there. And I think that when we get these opportunities in life, whether you had already that belief or you didn't, and this comes out of left field for you, it's like you're immediately met with trust. most people I talk to that have had a near-death experience or have had severe accidents and traumas that led to a portal opening, they just completely trusted it and went with it, even if it wasn't in their belief system. And that to me is so
Yeah.
wild about the power of it, that it's just this enveloping of beautiful trust, love, energy that allows you to surrender. Because otherwise you're just like gripping with fear, right? But something
Gripping.
tells
Yeah.
you you're going to be okay. This is the way to go. Let go.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me that a lot of very spiritually attuned people have had some sort of physical trauma in the past that's been like an accelerator for them, which makes sense because you're pushing against the edges of your beliefs and of your understanding. And it requires that moment that you talk about that's so beautiful, which is like, it truly is like those trust fall videos, where you just fall back and you're like, I hope somebody catches me. And that is what happens ultimately. But it's one thing to tell somebody that that happens. And it's another thing to like do it yourself and go through it yourself. But that's what's so beautiful about those situations. And mine was a virus. So mine was the COVID virus in 2020. I was one of the first people in the Bay Area to get it. And unfortunately, it really, really ravaged my system and my neurological system and my cardiovascular system. But it taught me so much. And of course, I mean, I wish I had not had to have gone through that in order to have these lessons. I call them growth spurts in spiritual understanding. But I don't know. I think that's, again, why we signed up for this, is to experience those pressures in the human experience and to discover what our capabilities are through them. And so I think once you've awoken through suffering, I think that you can start to awaken through joy. I think you can start to consciously access those transformative moments without being forced into them in that crunchy container. So that's one thing in my journey that I'm really interested in now is, okay, how can we access these gifts without having to be in the pressure cooker? We can create our own pressure cooker of joy. And what does that look like? That's what I'm really interested in.
Same here, because I wouldn't want necessarily anyone to suffer in the ways that I have, even though I know what came out on the other side. Even though
Yeah.
I understand of the gifts, it's still, you're like, no, I don't want people to have to suffer in that way. The existential question is, do they have to? Is there
Exactly.
that part of the journey that we need to feel that depth of contrast in order to then, get the,
Yeah.
or is there a way to hack that or to circumvent that? Are we spiritually aware enough to circumvent that? And maybe that's an evolution of our species, that we'll get to a point of where we don't
Yeah.
necessarily all need to get the hammer over the head first. We can just
Right.
go, oh yeah, I'm going to choose to practice my telepathic abilities today and connect with Crystal. And we're going to do this and spend time here. And that's really a huge
Yeah.
part of what this podcast is about, is creating both everyday moments and then making mysticism an everyday experience. How can we bring
Mm.
in practices and belief systems and even just the everyday things that make it normal for us to operate
Mm.
from here, and not make it so unattainable, or the thing that's at the end of that difficult mountain or accident. So
Mm-hmm.
your beautiful app is something that I see as part of the solution, or part of this continued set of gifts that have landed here on this planet to open people up to making this part of their everyday. So tell us a little bit more about how SoulPod came to be. How did it come to be for you?
Interestingly, this ties in perfectly. It came to be from that time of being very sick. I was forced to slow down. And I had more space, and before that, I was moving out of biotech. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next, but meditation has always been a cornerstone of my life. Started when I was 12 because I did martial arts for quite a long time. I was a hardcore martial artist and traveling the world and all of that. So it was a core component of my life. that I didn't really appreciate until later on. I was like, oh, I was very lucky to get exposed to really a Zen style of meditation very young. And then as I contemplated what I wanted to do next, I said, I want to share with people the tools that I had learned over my life that took me beyond the watching thoughts mindfulness, which is a fantastic foundation. But I was having mystical experiences. I was having out of body experiences. I was having central channel activations. And that's what I got really interested in. Even the spiritual scientist in me was like, what is going on?
Mhm.
There were really no platforms or places other than some amazing ashrams that I fell back on to walk me through that process of awakening. And so SoulPod to me is a platform for the awakening journey itself. So yes, it helps you lie the foundations that you need in order to walk into a meditative practice, but it takes you a bit further than maybe you have before. So we do personalization, understanding where you're at in your spiritual journey, not just whether you're anxious or having a hard time sleeping like everyone is. I want to understand, what's your relationship to your worth? What's your relationship to your intuition? And then we place you into a ritual journey of breath work, mantra, contemplation, unfocused expansion. And it goes deeper and deeper, deeper day by day with community. So that was the other element that a lot of times on this journey, especially when you start to encounter like the weird things, that there's not a lot of people to talk with. And we wanted to create a really powerful community component as well that travels with you on this journey. And we actually have a big release in a few weeks on that side of the app, which I'm really excited about. And so I really think of it as a platform for the awakening, for the new earth.
It's beautiful. And that community component is huge, even though we're all on our own journeys that are unique to us. We can feel just that sense of normalization around it by being able to talk to other people who are going through something similar or have had gone through something similar. We don't always need the teacher or the certified professional on the other end. We can
Yeah.
actually mirror for each other, support one another, do what,
Yeah.
villages used to do all the time of like, oh, we'll come together around
Exactly.
this person who needs our help and needs some
Exactly.
support. And those people don't all have to have gotten, PhDs to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of it as the, after meditation, you have that moment of, which I think is very valuable. And yes, you can journal and reflect, but you can also connect in that moment. It's the campfire moment where you've had a mystical experience, you've gone on a shamanic journey or whatever it is. And then you come back around and you're like, wait, so I experienced this. Is anybody else experiencing this? And that moment to me is very powerful. And so we want to create some space. And there's lots of ways we're doing also in-person experiences, but I think there's deep value in having a safe place to have that sharing. And so we're facilitating that.
I used to, with a couple of different friends who also were lucid dreamers, have check-ins with them to see if we could meet up actually in the dream state, in the
That's
astral.
cool.
And yeah, so that's another reason to connect around this is like, well, can we have experiences that aren't just in the physical with each other? And I have a friend who's on the podcast, or we became friends after she was on the podcast, and she's a dream oracle. And she actually does that with her clients. She
Oh,
dreams
fascinating.
for them. So she enters into their dream space and dreams with them. And
Ooh.
she can recall all of what they were dreaming and that they recall. So they're having a shared experience in those moments. It's so beautiful and wild. What can occur when it comes to living in this multidimensional understanding of life, that we're not just confined to the physical body.
That's so cool.
And you mentioned
I'm
Egypt.
very
Actually,
into
she
that.
was called to be a dream oracle having visited Egypt. She didn't know anything about it, but it was there that she got called to it. And apparently, the dream oracles were pretty commonplace back in ancient Egypt. So it's fascinating what we're also bringing back from the ancient times and weaving into the now through things like an app that you've beautifully created, and how we weave these things together to bring new life to ancient wisdom and understanding. So tell us a little bit more about some of your inspiration from ancient
Yeah.
civilizations and ancient wisdom that you weave into the work that you do.
Yeah. And Egypt is a portal, that is for sure. And I hadn't been too called to those teachings until very recently. It was like the last year. And it started to come into my meditations and my experiences. And I was like, okay, got it. Like, have to go. And it's certainly when you do go, the temples each carry a different energy and a different offering. And I could certainly feel that and connect to it. And you kind of get pulled into different rooms or areas, and you could feel that there was energy seated there to help you connect with those gifts, with those beings, with that knowledge. And for me, I'm still integrating it, but was extremely powerful. As far as my inspirations, definitely on the Zen Buddhism side, I think it's like foundations, but mostly on the Vedic side as well. I've had some amazing teachers. Paramahamsa Yogananda has been very important to me in my journey. If you haven't read Autobiography of a Yogi, definitely pick it up. And his lineage, Kriya Yoga, is very influential for me. Kundalini Yoga has been very influential for me. It is a very powerful yoga. I think that's why it tends to end up in the headlines, is because you're dealing with a lot of acceleration in your journey. And so it requires a lot of you as a teacher, as a steward of that energy. You have to stay on it. A psychedelic or mystical breath work, as I call it, has been hugely impactful for me as well. I credit that with helping me rebuild my cardiovascular and nervous system. It helped me to reset. I think of it as a reset button. And also, I would say interdimensional contact with beings that are not just in this a three-dimensional space has been very impactful in how I understand things and how I communicate things.
Did that communication happen spontaneously for you, or did you invoke it by either going to specific places or doing any types of specific rituals?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think an element of spontaneous connection. It started in a dream state in 2012 is when that contact first started up. And I really didn't know what it was. Like, I freaked out and ran out of my house at 3 a.m. to my friend's house down the street. But I understand now kind of how they communicate. And I would say that it has greatly accelerated in the last year, even in the last 6 months. They've gotten much more physical. And yeah. That's what I would say. How about you? I'm curious if you've had interdimensional contact. I have a feeling maybe.
Definitely at different times of life. There were in the earlier phases before my accident that I mentioned at 16, I used to what started out as lucid dreaming and then astral travel. And so in that experience, there's always a meeting of different beings, always benevolent, never scary.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that to me is something that I think is really beautiful. We get seeded here with so much fear through movies of like what ETs are
Yeah.
and how they're coming to take over the planet and they're going to kill us
Yeah.
all. And my experience, at least, has always been very benevolent, very loving.
Same.
And I don't know if that's because that's what I needed or not, but it
Yeah.
just really almost motherly kind of energy.
Yeah. Ooh, I just saw your screen when you said that went a little blue.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That
Well,
was
they're
cool.
here.
Yeah.
Cool. So different experiences over the years. And then my journey has been these early openings, but then fighting it a lot.
Oh,
So I fought
yeah.
and disregarded and disassociated from these
Mm.
gifts throughout a large portion of my life to where
Mhm.
I've been in and out of this I'm always on the journey, but I've been in and out of the conscious or direct experience of things because I had the walls up and was
Mm.
doing all the things to avoid not just the gifts and accepting those, but the pain and all the work that I knew that I needed to go through in order to actually be the vessel for
Mm.
this. And I think you mentioned that earlier with these openings and with the accepting of this initiation. It's like you're also accepting the work, and
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
hard. It's hard work,
Yeah.
and I haven't always been ready for it. Right. And I would say
Yeah.
it was about 2020 also. And I think that was a huge
Mm.
portal for so many of us. And I think everybody, it was a portal for everyone, whether or not you chose to step in. But
Yeah.
a massive portal
Absolutely.
opened then. And for me, I chose to step in fully. It's been a wild ride and absolutely much more contact, not with in a physical sense. Well, I mean, you could call it physical. It depends on what you
It depends on how you
define
define
that
physical.
as. But I visit with beings in my meditations and
Mm.
have a very physical like experience with them. But it wouldn't
Mhm.
be what maybe somebody who has not had that experience would consider physical. There's not like
Yeah.
here in my room and someone can walk in and then they see like a bunch of ETs hanging out on my couch.
Yeah.
But for me, it's as real as someone chilling on my couch and us having tea together. So that I think is that gray space of what's real, what's not. Is this the voice that you hear
Yeah.
in your head real just because someone else can't hear it? Or is this vision that you had real, even though you're the only one that experienced it? And that subjectivity, objectivity thing is really
Mm.
fascinating to me because, again, the way
Mhm.
we were raised, you were told that unless someone else can corroborate that experience, certainly from a scientific background, as you've experienced in your life, can't be tested and proven again or peer reviewed, then it's not valid.
Mhm. Yeah.
We're all having a subjective experience. So what's valid, what's not? Is it only what we can corroborate with people? So I like to play
Mm.
and think about that too, of what's real, quote unquote, versus unreal. How do you define that? Or is there a definition around real, unreal? And where's the line, if there is one?
That's a hard definition to make, especially when you get down into the subatomic realm. It's like ultimately, even though we perceive our hand in this table to be physical, I can't press through the table here. Does that mean that the table is more real than my dream state? So it's subjective to your point, but it's also even in the scientific work, like observation or personal experience is a data point. And yes, ultimately from a linear perspective of looking at what's real, you'd want to be able to reproduce that experience in some way with someone else, which ultimately I think we will be able to do with a lot of what we're talking about. I think we're just not quite there yet because we're only working with the senses that we have in this dimension. We're limited, we're greatly limited to our five senses. And that means our ability to perceive reality is greatly limited to the human perspective, which we know for a fact cannot encompass all of what is happening. We know we can't see certain bandwidths of light, right? So how could we think that we have a really solid grasp on reality? I love to nerd out on the quantum field, and I think there's a very valid reason why the spiritual community is talking about this. It's because it's the closest thing that we've had in scientific language to explain what we have experienced when we go into higher realms of consciousness. We know that we're not limited to the body. So the body is energy. The table is energy. It's just slower moving energy. And I think we forget that on a day-to-day basis. And when you start to learn how to move at will through different levels of consciousness, which I think is what our species is being called to do next, is to learn how to activate this inner technology and move into these frequencies that enable you to interact outside of the standard human senses with more information than you have before. When it's just limited to the analytical mind, you're in an entangled state with more information. Then I think you're getting closer to reality. But I was reading Thomas Herzog's most recent books with Stephen Hawking's latest theory. And man, if you want to deep dive into physics and theoretical physics at that, it really, by the end of the book, you're like, oh, we don't understand reality at all. Even these great minds, ultimately, they're coming to the conclusion that, yes, we have a quantum universe. The quantum field is a proven thing. It's no longer theoretical. And even further than that, things that we think are etched in stone, like time, like gravity, like these laws of the universe that we thought the universe was birthed into, are actually emerged from what they call interaction, which you could say is it's observation, it's encountering new information. And then these laws, including time, were created from that process, which is not exactly how we've thought about it up until now. We've really thought of it as these are etched in stone. They were there before, they'll be there after, and we were birthed into it. And they're saying that's probably not the case. So I love talking about the nature of reality because I don't know if we'll ever entirely understand it from the perspective of being in the human body. But I do think that science is starting to open its mind a bit, especially because of quantum mechanics being so trippy. It's forced us to go a little bit further against what it is we would have assumed if we were applying a linear process.
Right. With time folding over itself so that you can actually affect the past by doing something in the present, or that the future and the past and the present are all existing at once. The feeling I've always had around science is that it's another system trying to describe what's going on here, as are all of these other philosophical systems. And some of those, I think, have had a better handle on what's actually going on here more than science. Science is so rigid in that it I think maybe got in its own way to some degree from really just being able to be completely empirical, where you could explain the nature of reality just by feeling and observing the wind. So something like that, which then gets, I would say, convoluted to some degree, but like we've got so complex within it. And now we're coming back to, although, I mean, quantum physics is highly complex, but what it's describing is simple. Time is not what we think it is. And we are creating reality through being observers of that time and space. That's kind of like what the ancient mystics have always said. So just to your point, to have the proof of within this system, this Western system, is beautiful. What's going to happen in the coming together of all of that knowledge, information, energy, it's a great opening, another great expansion of wisdom, something that we
chill
can't,
on that one. Yeah.
I think it's something that we can't even conceive of yet.
You can feel the tickles of it. You can feel the vibrancy of it and the opportunity and the beauty and love in it. But it's still being formed, and it's being formed as we observe, as we choose each and every moment. To your point, it's really quite simple. I think at the end of the day, when we bring it all back, it's presence, it's being deeply aware, and the process of awakening. Yes, there's certain things that can help. It will reveal itself to you in that depth of that moment, including the future, including this new earth that we talk about, which is really just, it's not a leaving behind of anything. It's a stepping into something new as a collective. And we're all observing that together because we're also all each other at the same time. That's the other like simple component that's really also very trippy, is that you are me and I am you. We're just perceiving experience from different points on that sphere of experience. And we're all looking at that central truth from different angles. So when you're doing service, or when you're connecting, or this is why empathy is such a core component of it, and compassion, is because you're serving yourself. Ultimately, we're all the one consciousness. So we're all interconnected, whether we like it or not. Once you know that, you move from believing to knowing. And no amount of science is ever going to tell you that that's not true anymore. Once you've experienced it for yourself, you've now experienced that oneness, that moment. There's no going back from there. That's a permanent frequency shift or quantum leap. And that's a powerful, powerful moment and experience on the journey.
100%. It is that. And I love this conversation and all the conversations that both you share on your podcast that I get to share on mine, because hopefully someone listening can feel within their own heart that the opening, the whisper, the nudge, the thing that they're feeling is an opportunity for them, an opportunity
Yeah.
to start to open up into whatever part of the path they want to travel down. I mean, there are endless
Yeah.
roads and there are endless
No
ways
one
to
way.
get home, right? And to return to our true nature. None of them are better than the other. And they're all
Yeah.
valid, and they're all a unique expression. Even if I took the exact same path as you, or I did Zen Buddhist style meditation, and then I went to this ashram. Let's say I followed the exact same path as you, we would still have different experiences of it. And that's
100%. Yeah.
back to that subjectivity, or back to our own, the nature of us as a unique being here that gets to wield our own reality, because we could both experience the exact same thing, whether it's a single event or a whole series of things, and have a different experience of it, be changed or transformed differently, have a different impact.
Differently. Yeah.
So everyone gets to experience that, both the unique quality of their own journey, and then share in some of the things that are the same, or that could happen or could occur. And so the more we talk about this, the more people tune in and listen. It's both and. It's like be held
Both
in
and.
the
Yeah.
experience of you not being alone, but then also be excited and be motivated to take responsibility, because you're the only one that can do it for you in your life.
Yes.
Right?
That's one of the harder truths, I think, that maybe we haven't as a collective messaged very well on this path. And you talked about it before too, is that it requires work, and it's tough work, and only you can do it. Ultimately, we can walk you to that cliff and hold your hand, but ultimately you're the one that has to jump off of it and do the hard thing. And I think some of our messaging around meditation being calm as well has done a little bit of a disservice. That's what people expect when they first go into the process, right? Is calm. And I always say that's like a lagging indicator. Reduce stress and increased calm is a lagging indicator of progress. It's not the ultimate why we do this. And so a lot of people find it hard to keep up the practice or do the work. And ultimately, it's your own timing, to your point. There's no wrong way. You can do it in this lifetime, you can do it in another lifetime, but it's a heck of a lot more fun to live as a creator. And a lot of times meditation is not calm. A lot of times your nervous system's getting fully activated, and you're learning how to find that flow. You're having ecstatic experiences. You're having really difficult subconscious moments. I just love to remind people that that's actually what you should expect on this journey, more so than the calm will come. You'll have those breakthrough moments, absolutely. But really getting connected to your why. Why are you doing these practices? Why are you committing to meditation? And for me personally, it's to fully soul realize in this lifetime. How much of my soul can I bring into this dimension of space and time? And then we expand back, but like, I really love the idea of how much of my soul, how much of that frequency can I bring into this experience? And that's what drives me. And then meditation becomes the most important thing I do in my day, because I'm connecting to that possibility. And I think that's one thing I would share with anybody listening, is really find a why that is juicy and powerful, and that will continue you forward, instead of just like, I'm checking a box that I did my meditation today.
Yeah. It's going back to what we were saying earlier about the perfectionist model, or the model of what we were taught to how we achieve and succeed and exceed expectations here as a human. You jump through these hoops. Here's your series of hoops. Now you go, and then each one successive to the other. and then you reach some pinnacle of something. And every single person I've talked to, including myself, who've reached that pinnacle are like, this cannot be all there is.
This cannot be it.
What? Is this a joke? Because
Yeah.
we feel that level of dissatisfaction. We feel that level of lack of meaning and purpose in
Yeah.
the hoop jumping once you realize that that's what you've been doing or that's what you've been pursuing, and that the pursuit itself has kept you actually away from the true journey within to go. And as you said, bring as much of your soul into or as much as that you want, the frequency of your
Mhm.
soul into this experience. And we only bring it in, to my belief, as much as we want to experience the magic of what that is. So if you
Yeah.
want to have life that feels magical, truly magical, of
Mm.
where you're
Yeah.
wielding things not by incanting and mixing different things together, but by understanding frequency and understanding how and what we are as pure energy, being able to
Mhm.
actually work with that in this lifetime is so much freaking fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it's so beneficial. All of us are trying to
Yeah.
do things that make life better and are
Yeah.
beneficial to us. Take the vitamin, do the jog, get this degree, whatever it is. But this level of doing something, of getting into your frequency of your soul, turns on. It's like before you had like the little drips. Oh, it's dripping some satisfaction into your life. You just turn on the floodgates because you just have surrendered, right? You no longer have to hold back the dam. And I feel like so much stress, illness, disease, melancholy, malaise, mental illness
Mm.
come from simply like the work that it takes to hold back the dam of ourselves, of
Ooh, love that.
our truth.
Yes. Yeah. Double click on that. I think you put that perfectly. So much of that exhaustion is from holding back that
Yeah.
wholeness. Yeah. That really resonates. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling more energized.
Me too. Yeah, I'm so happy we had this conversation. All the links to you, to the SoulPod app, everything, and all the ways that people can connect will be in the show notes. Before we leave today, though, since we're on the subject of opening the floodgates, allowing
Yeah.
what's truly meant for us to flow into our lives. You've mentioned meditation, of course, deep listening, and the stillness and the
Mm.
presence that comes from all of that practice, and it not being just one practice, but being, and I love that you said a very active practice because it is for me as well. And we can bust that myth that meditation is oming on a cushion in lotus position. It's one type. So you mentioned those things as ways and means of opening up the floodgates, visiting sacred
Mm.
sites like you just did,
Mm.
an amazing way of opening up the floodgates, getting SoulPod app, because what you've created is brilliant and amazing. That's another way for
Thank
people to
you.
tap in, open up the floodgates. What are
Mhm.
one, two, or three more that you can think of to share right now as a way for either people to get started, keep going, or to deepen in their journey?
What's coming up for me right now is kind of riffing off of what I was saying about your why, but it's getting very clear about where it is you want to go, because where it is you want to go holds a certain frequency that you wish to experience more of in this life. And so I don't think we spend enough time. And yeah, this is like future feeling type of work, but I do this quite often myself, is feeling into that future, because what I'm trying to get out of that experience is, what is that frequency? What is that feeling? What is that experience? And it doesn't matter as much the exact scenario and timeline. Let all that go. What you're trying to find is that feeling, which is going to lead you to the frequency. Practicing, starting to bring that into your here and now. I just came back from a festival called MetaFest, where we led a future feeling type of experience. And one thing that I heard from a lot of people is like, I can't believe I haven't connected with that. This is crazy. Like, it's so much more clear. So I think that North Star can be there for you. And it's simply a North Star. And then you release all of the attachments to how you get there.
Mm.
and let it unfold. I think that's one element. And then
It's huge.
connecting, yeah, connecting in community, I think is a big one because everything gets amplified in community, whether that's with your favorite teacher, whether that's with us. Our next event will be in April in Joshua Tree. But finding your community where you can access these frequencies that you want to be accessing and then fall back into the support of the community. That's really an accelerant in so many ways. And then an honorable mention to psychedelics. I think psychedelics can be a door opener. They're not going to do all of the work for you.
Right.
Really, I feel like that's very important to say. They will give you a key and you can walk into a new realm and you have a lightning bolt moment and you're like, ooh, I didn't know this was possible. But then you exit the room and it's on you to learn how to access that realm on your own because that's true power. When you can do it at will, that's power. And then you have the psychedelic experience available every day if you want it. Yeah.
Yes, and living in the abilities that we can master over time, that can come in. I love how you said that lightning bolt moment. You know, we can have peak experiences, we can have lightning bolt moments, we can have the sky opening up and God speaking to us. We can have these moments in time. Every moment in between, though, that
Yeah.
is the most important to
Yeah.
cultivate the continued opening, to not go back into the matrix, back into the constructs, and staying open is really where that work remains. So yes, I love everything you shared. I'm so delighted that we got to meet and spend this time together.
Me
Yeah, I
too.
know that the audience is going to walk away with so much gift from what was shared, but then also the continued journey with you and everything that you're doing in the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. And I feel way better now.
Me too.
There you go.
The community.
Community.